Good evening, fifth graders. This is Rachel again. I'm going to be teaching your lesson tonight. We're going to be talking about regular tessellations. These are really fun. We're going to have a super fun class period tomorrow because you'll be able to construct your own tessellations using your Chromebooks. So, first of all, what is a tessellation? Well, as you can see here, a tessellation is an arrangement of repeated closed shapes that cover a surface so that no shapes overlap and there are no gaps between the shapes. There's some key parts of this definition here that you got to remember. It must be a repeating pattern. No shapes can overlap, and there cannot be any gaps between the shapes. If you break one of these rules here, you no longer have a tessellation. All right? Now, some tessellations repeat with one shape. Others combine two or more shapes. We'll look at a few examples of that in a little bit. You can see here in this top tessellation, this consists of squares and triangles. So that's an example of a tessellation that has more than one shape. Now, a tessellation with shapes that are congruent regular polygons is called a regular tessellation. Remember that a regular polygon is a polygon with all the same lengths in their sides and angles. So an example of that would be an equilateral triangle, because an equilateral triangle has three sides all the same length. All right? So here you can see that triangle. These are equilateral triangles. This is an example of a tessellation because the triangles are not overlapping and there are not any gaps. It's a repeating pattern. So that's a pretty easy example of a tessellation. Here we can see some squares. If we take these squares, go ahead and copy them, paste a few more, we can place them together and see that they're not going to overlap and there's not going to be any gaps. So it'll continuously be a repeating pattern. Kind of looks like some tiles or some stones. So that is an example of a tessellation. Now if we look here, these are some pentagons because there are 5 sides. These are a regular polygon. However, we can see that there's a little bit of an overlap right here. So this would not be considered a tessellation since there is the overlap. However, if we pull this pentagon out, it no longer overlaps, but we now have a gap. So a regular pentagon will not tessellate. Here we can see some hexagons. These have 6 sides, kind of looks like a beehive. If we copy a few of these here, we'll see if this tessellates. Go ahead and copy and pull it in. And look at that. If it's right in, it does not overlap. There are no gaps. It's a repeating pattern. So that is an example of a tessellation. Here we can see an octagon, all right? Now, an octagon has 8 sides. If we copy and paste another one, you can see that it fits together, but it only fits together if there is a square in between the octagons. So a regular octagon will not tessellate, but a regular octagon with a square will be considered a tessellation because that will be a repeating pattern. So which regular polygons will tessellate and which ones will not? Well, we just saw that a regular triangle will tessellate, squares will tessellate, and a hexagon will tessellate. However, pentagons and octagons will not tessellate unless there is another shape with them. All right? So let's take a look at some more examples here. Here we can see some more equilateral triangles. These triangles are colorful, so it's another little fun way to make a tessellation. There's a repeating pattern. None of the triangles are overlapping. There's no gaps. Here we can see another example of a tessellation. And a few more. You can get pretty fun and creative here with them. This one here has a variety of shapes in it. We can see some more here. All of these are tessellations because there are no gaps, there are no overlapping, and they're a repeating pattern. So tomorrow in class, we'll be able to construct our own tessellations however you would like. It'll be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to it. Just remember that a tessellation, there are no gaps between the shapes, there's no overlaps, and it's a repeating pattern. So we'll have some fun tomorrow creating our own tessellations.